Let's begin with a simple truth. At some point in life, most people will face a period of profound confusion. It might come after a breakup, after losing a job, or at the middle of a seemingly successful life that suddenly feels hollow. We often call these moments crises, but Carl Jung saw them as something else, invitations. These uncomfortable transitions are often the beginning of a deeper psychological process he called individuation, the process of becoming the person you were always meant to be. In this episode, we're going to explore what individuation is, how it shows up in real life, and why moments of personal crisis are often signals, not of failure, but of growth. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, believed that each person has a unique inner potential, a blueprint for wholeness. This deeper self, what he called the self with a capital S, isn't the same as the ego or the personality we show the world. It's something deeper and more comprehensive. Most of us, however, grow up in environments that shape us to fit in. We adapt. We learn what's acceptable and what's not. We put on roles to be loved, safe, or successful. Jung referred to these roles as the persona, the mask we wear in society. It's not inherently negative. We all need a persona to function. But problems begin when we confuse the mask with our identity. Eventually, life has a way of challenging that mask, and when that happens, it often feels like we're falling apart. But in Jungian psychology, this is not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. A moment when the unconscious mind begins pushing for change. A call to integrate the parts of ourselves we've left behind. So how does individuation actually begin? It usually starts with discomfort, a sense that your life no longer fits. Things you used to care about don't matter anymore. The goals you work toward now feel meaningless. Relationships may start to feel misaligned. You might feel emotionally flat, directionless, or even overwhelmed. These symptoms can look like burnout or depression, and they should never be ignored. But in the Jungian perspective, they can also be seen as signals that the psyche is trying to realign itself. You are being asked not to fix yourself, but to find yourself. At the center of this journey is the idea of psychological integration. He believed that we are made up of many parts, conscious and unconscious, accepted and rejected, light and shadow. The shadow, in particular, plays a key role in individuation. It represents the aspects of ourselves we've denied or repressed. That could include emotions like anger, fear, jealousy, or even positive traits like ambition, assertiveness, or creativity that we were taught not to express. The shadow isn't evil or dangerous by default. It's simply the part of us that hasn't been made conscious yet. And he warned that if we don't face our shadow, it will influence our behavior in unconscious ways. To quote him directly, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Think about that. Have you ever noticed repeating patterns in your life? Relationships that end the same way, jobs that drain you, emotional responses that feel out of proportion? Often, these patterns stem from unresolved or unconscious material. Individuation is the process of bringing those patterns into awareness, of integrating what has been left out of our conscious self-image. This is not about fixing yourself, it's about becoming whole. Now, this process isn't always comfortable. In fact, it's often quite difficult. It may involve grief for the roles you've outgrown, the goals that no longer serve you, the identity you've spent years building that now feels limiting. You might feel a sense of loss as you let go of who you thought you were. But again, that loss is meaningful. Jung saw individuation as a kind of psychological rebirth. The old self falls away to make space for something more authentic to emerge. This doesn't mean you need to change everything about your life. It's not about reinventing yourself out of impulse. Rather, it's about aligning your outer life with your inner truth. You begin making decisions from a place of self-awareness, rather than social conditioning. You start recognizing your patterns and choosing differently. You might find yourself more drawn to solitude, reflection, and honesty. You stop outsourcing your worth to other people's opinions, and over time your life becomes more congruent, not easier necessarily, but more real. Jung also emphasized the importance of listening to the inner guide, what he called the self. The self isn't loud, it doesn't demand, it whispers, it nudges. It often appears in dreams, symbols, or gut instincts. It's that quiet feeling that says, something's not right. Or, this path feels more true. Sometimes it shows up as restlessness, other times as fascination or attraction to certain ideas, places, or people. Following those subtle cues can lead you toward integration, toward experiences, choices, and relationships that resonate with your deeper self. He saw dreams as a particularly powerful tool in this process. They often reveal what our conscious mind is not yet ready to accept. If you're going through a major life transition, paying attention to your dreams, journaling, or working with a therapist trained in depth psychology can be incredibly valuable. It's important to say that individuation is not a one-time event. It's not something you complete in a weekend workshop. It's a lifelong journey, an ongoing unfolding of self-awareness. You won't always have clarity. You won't always feel empowered. There will be setbacks. There will be doubts. But over time, you build something stronger than confidence, inner authority, a sense that your life is being lived from the inside out. You start trusting yourself more. You stop needing constant validation. You begin living according to your own values, even if they differ from what you were taught. You might make different choices. You might walk away from things that used to define you. You might reconnect with creativity, curiosity, or parts of yourself you forgot existed. That's individuation in action. It's not dramatic. It's not always visible to others, but it's transformative. Let's pause here and reflect. If you're currently going through a transition, whether it's a breakup, job loss, or a general sense of disorientation, consider the possibility that this is not the end of something, but the beginning of a deeper journey. Ask yourself, what roles have I outgrown? What values actually matter to me now? What patterns keep repeating, and what are they trying to show me? What part of myself have I ignored or silenced? Don't rush to answer. These questions aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to be lived. Start small. Notice what energizes you. Notice what drains you. Notice where you feel like you're performing and where you feel free. These are all clues from your inner self. To conclude, Carl Jung's concept of individuation offers a powerful framework for understanding personal growth, not as a climb toward perfection, but as a return to wholeness. It's about becoming conscious of all that you are, not just the parts you've polished and presented to the world, but also the parts you've hidden, rejected, or forgotten. It's about integration, not elimination. And through that integration, we gain not just insight, but meaning. Because ultimately, meaning doesn't come from following a blueprint set by others. It comes from aligning with who we truly are. And that is the real journey. Thank you for listening to The Rational Path. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing, sharing this episode, or reflecting on your own individuation journey in the comments. Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and keep walking your path.